Turner. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. It's actually sun shining outside. It's been raining a lot here.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because last week I had two power outages. Both happened when I was doing a podcast because of the weather, and now it's a complete 180. Now it's almost like 90 degrees outside. So, and now it's in the garage, and the sun is literally pounding on my garage door, so the heat is nice and hot where I am. So I can't win. You know, I never knew it would be like extreme weather in Texas, but yes. So, welcome to the podcast. This is awesome. I was really happy when I approached you about it, and you're like, "This will be epic," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, this is cool." I had one of your proteges on, Sarah Gamache.
Right.
Yeah, she came on. She was had nothing but praise for you and your what she learned from you, and that's what I'm excited to, because I know yours is the mental aspect of shooting, and you cover both firearms and archery as well, right?
Right. Yeah, I developed the control process shooting program for firearms first in the law enforcement world, and then took that, just basically a realization that, you know, the same things of what was happening in firearms is what's happening in archery as well. So just it's actually on a bigger scale in archery.
It really is. And after, you know, watching videos on the philosophy behind it and stuff, I'm like, you know what? I thought I recovered from target panic, and I haven't.
There is no recovery from it because it's not a disease, bro.
I had it. It peaked really bad for me last year. It was getting to the point, Joel, where I would draw back, and my front shoulder always drops. So I'd get back, set, anchor, and then I have to bring my arm up. And as soon as I brought with a pin, just was on that boom. And I couldn't figure out. I had to slow everything out. I built a shot trainer, and I started just pulling back and holding it, and then visualizing and then I've learned about what you teach. I'm like, I haven't even fixed the problem at all. Really, especially thinking that if I talk myself through, okay, draw, you know, anchor,
right,
spot, you know, and pull, I'm still it's not habitual. It's still it hasn't become where, you know, in the morning I brush my teeth. I know exactly. I just stick it in my mouth and start. There's nothing to it, you know.
Well, but shooting is unlike anything, because if it was like brushing your teeth, if your toothbrush exploded when it touched your teeth, then that would be like shooting, right?
Well, you know what, I've used that charcoal toothpaste, and it looks like my tooth. It looks like my tooth has exploded.
Nice. Well, yeah, it's, you know, people try to use analogies with shooting, but shooting is unlike anything because there's an explosion that happens and your body is pre-programmed to brace you for that impact. If it knows the impact is coming, it's going to brace you for it. It tries to time it, right? That's the whole thing with your pin being locked off the target, because your pin being on the target equals the explosion. So it won't let you just do that. That's why shooting takes this massive conscious override every single time. And that's what ShotIQ does. That's what we do at ShotIQ, is we teach people how to consciously defy human nature. And it's just, you know, it's really cool stuff when you figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, I thought I figured it out, and I haven't, and especially watching, I'm like, and it hasn't been as frustrating. I took my peep sight out. That's one thing that's helped me.
Oh,
why did you do that? I felt I was searching, and once, like I said, I got locked on, I would fire. And now that I got a bigger picture and I could focus on the pin itself, even though I know the peep sight does that, it doesn't narrow my vision. I guess I'm trying to say, where I got that whole picture, but now I can narrow it with that, just looking at the pin. Because I grew up, that's how I grew up. Like I started out in the 80s, and I didn't have any peep sight. Used the 3 fingers with a leather, you know, on a compound bow. Had those metal, I don't even know who made them, the little sight with the metal pieces, and you unscrew a little bit and move up and down. That's, you know, I never used a peep sight. And when I kind of got distracted in life with school and traveling, and I didn't have much time to hunt, and then when I settled down a little bit and I got a new bow, and then the peep sight, and I was like, peep sight. And then I wanted it because that seemed to work for everyone. And a release, I never used release until I picked up archery again. And but yeah, I relied on the peep for a long time, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try without. And I know it's helped me as far as slowing me down. You know, and I'm taking more time and holding on to target, whereas opposed when I bring in that peep and I hit the peep on the pin and I saw the target, boom, and punch. I didn't even, there was no smooth to it. It's just yeah.
Well, you gotta, that's the progression that you followed is very similar to my progression. I started out shooting a recurve when I was 7 years old. And then by the time I'm 8, I'm completely locked off the target. Don't know why. I'm 8 years old. I'm way low on the target, and I would jump my bow to the target and let it go. And that was all cool. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll get a bow sight. So I got a sight and couldn't put a pin on the target. I had a peep sight and a sight, couldn't put the pin on. So I removed the peep sight because that made me more conscious in my aim. But the problem is that the ultimate problem was being conscious in the aim. Like, you should be able to shoot any sight system you want. It doesn't matter. It's just something that you get done. However, if the aim means something to you, then you're always going to be fighting it. And so you should be able to shoot anything you want, right? If you're going to shoot instinctive, where you don't even see your arrow, if you're going to shoot gap system, if you're going to shoot pins, single pin, multiple pin, peep sights, no peep sights, it shouldn't matter. It's just something that you get done and then you move on from it. But that's the problem, is certain personalities can't move on. They don't want to move on from it. Change. And if you don't give that away, you don't give the aim away, you're stuck in that room and the rest of your shot doesn't even exist. Right? So you're putting your pin on the target equals an explosion. And so we have to disassociate that. And that's where I come in.
Yeah. And then, it makes it, because I used to be a strength conditioning coach. I worked with athletes and I would correct form, like an Olympic lifting, a power clean, something like that. Same thing. You see little things you can change to make that movement much quicker and perform it more safely. And then I look at it the same way with archery. I shoot by myself. I shoot here at the house, and I don't have anyone to look at my shot. I know I could video. I should, and but it's still having that video and managing, like analyzing your shot, still doesn't take care of what's going on in your head.
Right. And when you're looking at the physicality of a shot, especially from a strength training aspect, you're going to be looking at the physicality, the form, how the skeletal structure is set up, and you're going to be trying to push that toward efficiency. Right. I mean, efficiency of movement is what we seek as human beings, but that is the opposite of what we're actually looking for in archery, for a specific movement, not for the whole form aspect of it, but for your shot activation movement. Your mind will also want to push that toward efficiency, and that can't happen. It has to remain conscious, closed loop, slow enough you can stop it, and all those things. And that's where the determination comes in. Because, maybe you're frustrated right now with your pin being off the target, but what are you going to do to fix it, right? You have to take that frustration and turn it into determination. And then you got to know what to do with that, right? And then it's where you funnel it into decisions and so forth.
So how did you go from firearm instructing, and how did you develop the system first for firearms, and then how did you transfer it to archery as well?
So I used to be a horrible shot I shot BB guns for forever, right? Growing up, and I could shoot really well, but there's no recoil involved with that. So it was really easy to, my dad, when we first started, told me to, press the trigger slow as I can and all that stuff. And that was all good advice. But on BB guns, 22s, that was easy. But you put a centerfire rifle in my hand, I was worthless. I would, as soon as the crosshairs would get on whatever I wanted to hit, boy, I'd punch that trigger. And when I punch that trigger, right, you'd get open loop motor program. So that would link pre-ignition movements to that trigger motor program. So the flinch essentially, right? So I'd flinch like crazy on centerfire rifles and with pistols. So when I turned 21, I bought a pistol because then I could carry a pistol, and I was horrible with it, and I didn't know why. And my job at the time was with a government agency where I would shoot suppressed air rifles all the time for animal damage control, and I was really good at that. But again, there was some contracts with some critters where we'd have to use centerfire rifles. I was not your guy for that because it would just, I would rush the shot and it just wouldn't work out. So I just had to, I was so frustrated in shooting because shooting was everything to me, especially in archery. And my archery at that time, when I was in my early 20s, teens and 20s, it was horrible. I would have to hold 4 or 5 feet over a target and then just dump my bow into it, right? And so the progression of life and jobs and everything, every job I've had has had to do basically with shooting something. And I muddled my way through it in those early years. But then when I got into law enforcement, that put me over the edge as far as determination. I had to like sit down and go, okay, man, you can't do it like this anymore. You got to figure something out. And when I was in the academy, what I had done is what many people do is they try to mechanically fix a mental problem. So the sheriff's office that I was hired with, I was able to carry any pistol that I wanted. So of course I bought a 1911 that's got very little trigger travel, because when I punched the trigger on that, it wasn't quite as bad, right? As opposed to a Glock trigger that's got a lot more movement in it. So I made it through the academy. I actually took top firearms in the academy and just kind of started to figure things out there, and then got into law enforcement, and I started, shoot better and better, not necessarily knowing why. I knew I wanted to be a firearms instructor, however. So a couple years into my law enforcement career, I was chosen to be a firearms instructor. And I went through all the courses, and of course they didn't teach you anything about, they would say, don't slap the trigger, all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But it wasn't really the how. How do I do that? How do I stop slapping the trigger? And so when I became an instructor is when I really got to see it from a different light. And I got to experiment on recruits at the academy. I became a firearms instructor at the academy. And I got to experiment, and I really got to see, how is this person's mind working? Why are they slapping the trigger? How am I going to fix it? And I took the traditional firearms instruction and I analyzed that. Does this actually get to the problem? And I found that it didn't. For decades, we've been teaching things that are actually impossible to fix. And we've been approaching it from a very incorrect approach, and not fixing the mind. And, I don't know if you've ever taken any firearms instruction, but there was a mantra that was in firearms instruction for a long time, where the firearms instructor would say, they'd basically yell it on the range: front sight, front sight, front sight. Like the front sight is the problem, like it's an aiming problem, right? Well, I don't know if they thought this or what, but if you were to focus enough on the front sight, that everything would just take care of itself. Well, that didn't fix the trigger punching aspect of it. So I took that mantra and analyzed, why is it said in this way? Why is it said smoothly and always in a rhythm? And then I got to analyze other people in stressful situations that were talking themselves through movements in stressful situations. And when you do that, when you analyze that and you listen to it, it's always said more than once, and it's always said in a rhythm. It follows the martial arts mantra. For thousands of years, they've used words to direct concentration. So taking that knowledge and then knowing that, you have to talk yourself through a movement, especially if that movement's going to cause you impact. I came upon what I call the core problem in shooting. Your mind will not allow you to cause your body impact as a surprise. But that's what we've been chasing for decades, is this surprise break. But your subconscious will not allow that to happen. Therefore, it has to be consciously overridden. So I'll never forget this time on the range. We had what I call a nervous Nelly, right? So this guy was on the range, and he's 20 yards from the target, and he's of a personality. He's very nervous, very twitchy movements, and he was actually hitting the floor at 15 yards. So he wasn't even getting close. His shot anticipation or his pre-ignition movements were so large that they were moving his pistol barrel all the way to the floor before it went off. Right? So I'm thinking, oh my God, this kid's going to become a cop. I got to figure out how am I going to get this kid to concentrate on the trigger press, because that's the problem. I have to completely eliminate pre-ignition movements. So I remember getting on the driver's side of his gun so I could see his fingertip of his trigger finger. And I said, okay, I want you to take the slack out of the trigger, but don't make the gun go off. Okay, yes, sir. So he took the slack out of the trigger, right? So he just took the slack. It was a Glock trigger. So I got my sticker. It looks like I have painted nails here. So I've got my Glock trigger. So I had him take the slack out of it. I said, okay, now I want you to start pressing the trigger, but don't make the gun go off. I said, I want you to press it as slow as you can. So as soon as I saw that finger start to move, I went, okay, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. And I'm watching his finger move in the exact speed of my speech. And finally, the trigger broke, and he shot it right through the 10 ring. And he was surprised, said, man, that really scared me. I said, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But that was my light bulb moment. That's the moment that I went, I had complete control of this kid's mind just by what I was saying. So that set me on the path of research into neurolinguistic programming, which, was kind of a Tony Robbins self-help type of, talk your way through things. But nobody'd ever put it into shooting. And people weren't realizing that it was the conscious override. Speech is where concentration truly lies. So that's what got me going on this thing. And so I researched that. I researched kinesthesiology and all of these things. And I wrote an instructor's guide on how to get people to concentrate on the trigger press. And it just went from there. And I thought, well, this is the same thing. This is the same reason why I can't get through my clicker on my longbow. Right? Are you familiar with a limb clicker on a longbow?
No.
So a clicker uses mechanoreceptors in your skin cells. So if you draw your longbow back or your recurve, there's a little deal that you put on the limb. It's called a limb mounted clicker, and it's got a spring steel blade on it with the cord connected from the blade to your bowstring. So you draw back and aim, and then you add back tension or just tension in the system until that blade gets to a certain point, and it would click because it's got a bubble in it like a Snapple bottle cap, right? So that would click. When that clicks, the mechanoreceptors that are in the hair cells of your ear pick that up as a stimulus, and that sends the signal to your brain to release the string. But that takes a conscious override that I didn't realize. I could do it in backyard shooting and whatever, but I couldn't do it on critters. I could never get through my clicker when I'm shooting at an animal. So that's when I realized I have to talk myself through it. If I need to concentrate on this movement, I have to talk myself through it. And that really got me set on the path of research to really figure out, I went through courses in advanced concepts and motor learning and performance and all that stuff, and kind of put all these two sciences together. And that's where controlled process shooting was born. And then it was really, figuring out the fail points of human beings. Where are you failing in determination? Where are you failing in decisions? Where are the fail points? And that's what we really focus on now, so we can get people in control of their shot super quick now. So,
a couple points you brought up there. I remember the BB gun and the 22, same thing. And I remember my first time shooting a 10 gauge single shot shotgun.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Talk about anticipation shot. You knew because you always heard, oh, 10 gauge, you're gonna get, and it did. My shoulder got destroyed, but at the same time, it was that total thinking. Your heart starts racing a little faster, so your head starts playing games, and you pull that trigger, and just boom, and you're like, I mean, I could probably only shoot that 2, maybe 3 times until I was, I was done. Then I joined when I was in the military. Their shot was start breathing, get that on that breath, breathe, get that breath going. And as you breathe, then you start squeezing that trigger. And then, and I shot really well. I was a shot expert. And I try when I shoot my bow, I've taken on meditation. That's one thing I've really focused on, trying to slow my mind down because I can just start getting distracted way too easily. And I'm trying to take that same approach to shooting my bow where I'm taking breaths and trying to slow things down, but I'm still aware of what I'm doing, where I want to make it just so it happens.
Yeah, in the military, they would link breathing to the trigger press.
Yep.
But the breathing, all you're doing is taking breathing, which is an open loop motor program, which means you don't have to think about it. It's just automatic, right? And they were taking that breathing and putting into a closed loop control system where it was slow enough you could stop it or you could actually control it, right? But the problem is you were controlling the movement of your breathing and not the movement of this. There is no link between the two unless you make a conscious link between the two.
Yep, you're right.
Because, when you were breathing, you weren't exhaling and then all of a sudden you exhale quickly and press the trigger. They're not linked, right? The trigger finger would leave the breath. They were linked at the start as long as you knew it wasn't going to go off, like maybe through the slack in your trigger. But then once it came to the point where your mind knows it's going to go off, it would shove that off to the subconscious and say, here, you take it. We'll brace the body for recoil and punch the trigger all at the same time just to keep you safe, right? Shooting is a very negative event to the human mind. So it's funny how your subconscious will work against you any way that it can. So again, you have to learn this conscious override. So if you were to put the concentration that you were putting into your breathing into the actual trigger movement, then you actually get to, control a movement that causes an explosion.
Wow. And I'm thinking what you're saying about when I shoot my bow. Yeah. Cause I know it's going to happen and you do tense up. And I never, until you really brought that up, I know it's happening. I can feel it, but I never really, now that you described that, I'm thinking, holy cow, it may not be the impact of a 10 gauge, but still you're bracing yourself. Holy shit. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. Is that the theory behind the, John Dudley's tension release, is that the same kind of similar where you just keep pulling and waiting for that to just release itself? Is that somewhat similar with what he's trying to accomplish?
Well, when you look at a tension activated release, you have to go back to the decisions that are made in shooting. So, and the separation of away from the aim. Because right now in your shot, let's just analyze your shot real quick and we'll get back to the tension activated release. In your shot, when you are locked off the target, what are you thinking about?
Steps I need to get to make that shot. So like I said, I got to raise my arm up because the front shoulder always drop. Even when I bring it up, it just, so first thing I'll go like raise arm and then I go get set. I'm going anchor and then I'll get on the sight and I'll start saying myself pull.
But before you start saying pull, are you really on the target or are you still locked underneath it?
Probably locked underneath it or in the vicinity, but not on it. And like I said, and there's no smooth. I knowing now, I'm not smooth with that trigger. I probably punch it probably 98% of the time.
Okay, so the 2% of the time, we got to figure out the difference in those but first thing we need to do is aim, because the aim is still meaning way too much to you in your shot. If you're thinking about it at all, I mean, after you get it set, That's it. It's visual proprioception will take care of it. It will always return it to center if you just watch it like a picture, right? So draw back and aim, get it done, get that aim done quickly. No slow movement to target. You shouldn't even recognize what direction your pin comes in from. Just put it on the damn target. If you know it's 20 yards and you have a 20-yard pin, draw back and aim. Stick it on the 20-yard, put your pin on the 20-yard target and then just let it dance, because you don't really have any control over it anyways. The only control you have is visual. So just watch it like a picture, right? And then you have to step away from it. So that's where the decisions come in, right? And that's where we say, I have people say, here I go, after the aim is complete. So you draw back and aim, get it done, watch to keep it. Here I go. And then you start into your words that direct that concentration into your shot activation movement, right? Are you shooting an index finger, trigger, thumb button? What do you got going on?
Thumb button. Thumb button.
Thumb button, okay. So you draw back and aim, get it done, watch to keep it. There's no locked off target, because you're going to feel just like you would feel if you're not going to shoot the arrow. If you know you're not going to shoot, you can aim all day, right? You can put the pin right where it's at, right where it needs to be, and you're not shaky or anything, right? That's the same feeling you should have every single time you draw your bow back, right? So you draw your bow back and you aim, then you put your thumb on the trigger, right? Then it's here I go. Because here I go is a decision, right? If you think about somebody that's about to jump off a cliff, they are going to cause their body impact. If you are stuck in the future, you got your little toesies hanging over the edge, and if you're stuck in the future, like, I don't know if that water's deep enough, you will never jump if that's where your mind is at, right? It takes a conscious override of your central nervous system to actually get yourself to do a movement that carries your body off the cliff. That conscious override is usually verbalized, right? Somebody's got their toesies hanging off the edge and they take that big breath. Here I go. And then and only then can they move off the cliff with this conscious override, right? Same conscious override has to happen in every single archery or firearms shot in a precision environment where you're not going to brace the body for recoil. So again, here I go is the conscious override. It does a couple things. It separates the shot from the aim. It separates it away from the aim, and it makes you intensely present, because that's what decisions do. Conscious decisions make you present, right? It's one of the fundamentals of precision shooting, right? So it makes you intensely present for the next job, which is full concentration on the shot activation movement, right? So job number one, draw back and aim, get it done, watch to keep it. Thumb goes deep on the trigger. Here I go. And then you start talking yourself into that movement, whatever that is for you, right? And so on a thumb button is actually the most complex of movements, because there's a couple ways you can do it. You can actually take your pinky or your ring finger and press that system. So you're pressing the release into your thumb. We're never moving our thumb, right? You've hooked it into the trigger, and you can squeeze the top of your hand into the trigger, right? Or you can put your thumb around the trigger and then simply relax the back of your hand, right? And that will move the trigger into your thumb, okay? So those are just a couple of the most accurate ways to run a thumb trigger. But to do that, it took decisions, right? It took determination. It took decisions. The decisions made us present, and our presence allowed us to concentrate, right? When you take a tension-activated release, it basically separates it for you and makes the decisions for you, because you push the safety in, you draw back and aim, and nothing happens in the shot until after you take the safety off, right? So that's your little decision maker right there. So you draw back and aim. Once the aim is complete, you take the safety off. That's your here I go moment, right? but you don't necessarily need to make that decision because it ain't going off unless you take the safety off. So you take the safety off, and then if you don't pull or expand, your bow's not going to go off, right? So a tension activated release, in my opinion, is great for a training tool, but it's certainly not the most accurate release system out there. Otherwise, everybody would be shooting it in the professional archery world, right? There are more accurate systems out there, but they require this conscious decision to work the trigger system. Like most people, eventually most professional archers work their way to a release, right? And with a hinge release, I'm hoping that they shoot with a click in it, right? So you can actually roll the release to the click and then say, here I go, and then finish the movement, right? But some people, because the click freaks them out, they'll take the click out of the release so that they don't know when it's going to go off. But there's more problems with that than people realize. So, it's the decision point. You should be able to shoot any release you stick your hands on, right? Be it index finger trigger, thumb button, hinges, tension activated, pinky triggers. It doesn't matter, right? You have to use that same determination to make the decisions, to make you present so that you can concentrate. So that's what's lacking in your shot is, number one, the determination is not being funneled to the right spot. It's not being funneled into your shot activation movement. And you're starting your shot with wonder. Because if you're doing it 98% of the time you're punching the trigger, before you draw your bow back, you don't really know how that shot's going to go. You don't know if it's going to be the 2% or the 98%. Because you have never blueprinted the difference, right? Like there's some that you shoot and you're like, doggone it, this time I'm going to shoot this shot. I'm going to work my way through this trigger no matter what. I don't care what happens. And you make that decision before you ever put tension on the string. That's what we call the original decision, right? It starts every precision shot. I have people say, I'm going to shoot this shot with control no matter what. And then they draw their bow back. And as they draw their bow back, I have them perform the half draw moment, which is another decision made as they draw their bow. Say something. I don't care what you say. Say, I'm going to do this right. Say, I'm a badass. I don't care. Whatever. Say something. Because that will make you present enough for job number one. Getting that aim done. Getting that anchor. Getting the aim done. All those things. But you still have so many more tasks to do, right? I still got to put my thumb on the trigger. I still got to say, here I go. And I still need to concentrate. So here I go. That's probably the most important 3 words you could ever say in a shot, because that is the conscious override. Even if you forget the original decision and you forget the half draw moment, here I go will slap you back to reality to make that shot the 2%, right?
But it's go time.
Yeah. So there can't be any wonder in your shot. You can't wonder if you're going to control this one or not. Because if you wonder, it's already been handed to autopilot. Because there are systems that you were born with that are working against you. So there's no default. There's no default to precision. The default is actually efficiency, right? And efficiency means too fast in the trigger. Open loop. If it's open loop, that means that pre-ignition movements are going to be linked to that trigger motor program. That's just how it works. Not my opinion. That's just the science of how it is.
Wow. I'm as you've been speaking, I've been kind of going through my shot, and definitely there's no aim coming up first and then going through my shot process. It is up, got the pin on, and then just the whole
right
anchor, draw, boom, and then shoot. I never thought about, okay, first thing do, get it on the target, aim. Then we're going to start getting ready to shoot.
Yep.
That's not even anywhere near what my shot process involves at all. Not even close.
It just creates these pauses, and in these pauses, you fill those pauses with decisions that make you present. right? That's the key to this whole business, is being so present in it that you can concentrate on a movement that causes an explosion. That's completely unnatural for the human mind to handle. So it's just super interesting stuff, and there shouldn't be any wonder, right? Get out of Wonderland, man.
I'm always there. That's why I'm trying to meditate, so I can get my mind out of Wonderland and focus on things.
Right.
It's and it and out of all, I mean, shooting in general is all mental, majority of it, and I understand. The thing is I'm aware of it. I know that it's the whole mental aspect. I can draw back whatever poundage bow you give me. Great. Yeah. How am I going to execute the shot? That's a whole different story,
Sure.
So, and that's why I don't want to, I haven't considered buying a tension release or anything like that, because I think it takes parts out of it. I guess you could say the proper way to shoot. And then I'd like to try a hinge release. I really like my thumb release, but I think the hinge probably is my eventual destination. But first, I want to work on my shot.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be worried so much about what release you shoot. You should be able to shoot the worst Walmart special, right, with a horrible trigger in it that's got tons of travel. It doesn't matter. When people show up with those to my shooting clinics, I'm like, that's the best release that you could have brought here, because it's the hardest one to keep your mind in when you're feeling the trigger go, and like, oh my God, you're feeling all the grit and the sear and all the stuff. But if you can work yourself through that nasty trigger, then the rest of it is super easy. But you have to blueprint how you did it. So, if you go out and shoot today and you're like, oh man, this is the greatest thing ever, and I'm thinking about stuff and everything's working for me, right? Well, please realize that nothing's going to work for you, right? You have to work for it. And what I'm telling you is simply how to do the work. It still takes all that determination, decisions, presence, and concentration to do that. So people sometimes take instruction hoping that it's going to work for them. And those people do not have their determination up high enough yet, right? It's going to take some pissed off, some anger, some frustration, all those things to deepen their determination well. And then they got to go reach into that well and pull it out and go, okay, I'm doing it this way, no matter what. And that's the biggest fail point of human beings right there.
Yeah, get too comfortable in just about anything, and change is hard. And then creating a habit to make it something that just happens, where, sure, I could go out today and, okay, I'm going to aim, now I'm going through, but and say I do shoot well today. That's just one day, I still have, and I know I'm kind of getting pumped right now to shoot, because I'm listening to you speak so I can go and practice some of these things. But this is just one day, you're not going to be there tomorrow, the next day, and the next day.
And the thing is you won't be there the next shot. Right. You do it one time, you're like, oh my God, I did it. Right. I'm done. Yep. But all the decision, all that determination that you found, all the decisions, all the presence, all the concentration only lasted for that one shot. That's it. Right. You have to do the same thing again. So to do the same thing again, you have to blueprint it. You shoot that perfect area and like, go, okay, how did I do that? But the questions specifically are this: what was I thinking about at full draw? And the answer to that should be, I was thinking about nothing other than my shot activation movement, right? That's the one that takes the conscious thought. And then question number 2, what was I saying? What words was I saying? And at what rate was I saying them, right? To get myself to concentrate on that movement. So you got to know what your mantra is, right? So if you're doing meditation stuff, you're probably working in some mantras and some sound and stuff like that to become more mindful about what you're doing. This is the same thing, but this is like the hard, tangible way of doing it. This is not like, unicorns and rainbows type stuff. This is, you got to do this in high stress events. So it can't be about self-image bubbles and, all this other intangible stuff. This is the science of how to do it. So you got, what was I thinking? What was I saying? Question number 3, could I have stopped it? Meaning, was I so keenly concentrated on the shot activation movement that I could have stopped it anywhere within it? And if you can say yes to that question, that's huge, because that means you were moving slow enough that you were in a closed loop control system, meaning you were able to gain feedback in it. And the only way you can do that for a movement that causes an explosion is you followed the fundamentals. You were determined enough to make a decision so that you were present, so that you could concentrate. That's the only way you can actually move that thing slow enough you could stop it. So that's a huge question. Could I have stopped it? And then question number 4, what decisions did I make to get myself in this process for this one shot? Like, before you drew your bow back, did you stand there and go, okay, I'm going to shoot this shot with control no matter what? And what you'll find on the range is most shots shot by people are never started with that determination, that decision. You'll see them, they'll look down range and they draw their bow back. There's no pause. If there's no pause, there's no decision, right? If there's no decision, the shot's automatically sent to autopilot. So, these decisions unlock the next step of the shot. Like, if you start your shot with no decision, the rest of the shot, all that control that you've practiced, it's not even available to you. Not even close, because you have not yet unlocked that door and opened the door. The decisions are what unlock the door to the next step. So the original decision, stand there, look down range, get everything set, get your hand set in the bow, put your release on there, and then make a decision. I'm going to shoot this shot with control no matter what. The bow comes up. As you draw the bow back, another decision, the half draw moment. Say something to yourself to snap yourself back, because as you draw your bow back, you are now in the process of the shot. And that's where autopilot tries to take it once again. So snatch it away from him. Be present when you draw your bow, because now you're in the process. Job number 1, draw back and aim, get it done, watch it to keep it, right? So once you get to your anchor, get that aim on there, put your thumb on the trigger, and then that final decision, the critical second, that 1 second in time after you believe the aim is complete, is when autopilot tries to snatch it from you the worst, right? That's where autopilot is the strongest. It's within that 1 second. I'm sure that, when you hunt, you have shot that arrow within that 1 second. As soon as you saw your pin where you wanted it, boom, off it goes. Well, if you did that, that means you went open loop on the trigger, which means you have pre-ignition movements linked to that trigger motor program, which means you flinched. Somehow, some way, there was other muscle contractions that were linked to that trigger motor program that kept you safe, right? It brings you in. So again, that here I go, that is probably the most important decision you could do to make yourself present for that final decision, that final movement, right? So the questions again of the blueprint: what was I thinking? What was I saying? Could I have stopped it? What decisions did I make to get myself in the process for this one shot? And then when you start to approach shots this way, you shoot one, you're like, yep, that was it. Go through your blueprint. Then you have the exact how you're going to shoot the next one, right? I'm going to make this decision now. I'm going to make this decision now. I'm going to make this decision now, right? You now know what decisions you're going to make, when specifically in the shot you're going to make them, and then scientifically how you're going to carry them out, because you know how to concentrate now, right? Through speech, talking yourself through it. So the next shot, you make the blueprint stronger. The next shot, you make it stronger. The next shot, you make it stronger, to the point when you can drop a decision, right? When you can drop the original decision, when you no longer have to stand there and go, I'm going to shoot this shot with control no matter what. When that becomes a principle by which you live, when it becomes a fundamental truth, then you don't have to use it anymore, right? Because why would you shoot it any other way, right? So, and then your half draw moment, you'll be able to drop that one off too. I would not recommend dropping off Here I Go until you become very advanced at making decisions. Keep that Here I Go in there to create that pause. I still use half draw moment and critical second, that Here I Go, when it's extreme stress, right? Like I'm shooting at a big giant bull elk that's screaming in my face or whatever. I mean, it's not like you can't go back to them. It's just that you won't have to go back to them every shot anymore. But now you're not out there practicing your shooting. You are using a shot to practice concentration, right? You're using a shot to practice all of the fundamentals: determination, decisions, presence, and concentration. And you're using that shot to strengthen your blueprint. Then there's no more wonder how it's going to go. You know exactly how it's going to go. So that's what I took. I really gained control of my archery shot on critters, and that lent itself to control in tactical situations as a police sniper. So, but up until I had that extreme control, I was still in wonderland, as most people are in law enforcement. They don't know how they're going to do in a precision environment, and that's scary, right? So we're trying to really get the wonder out of shooting in law enforcement, which, I have to reach a lot of people to do that. But it's again, not my opinion. It's a truth. So, now I know exactly how I'm going to do in a tactical situation. I've been there. I've done that. And luckily it happened after I had completely developed control process shooting. So it did nothing but vet the system and solidify and validate everything that I train.
Speaking of stressful situations, what if so someone's practiced and got the blueprint and they're shooting well in the target range, and then that big bull's screaming his head off, comes in, and all of a sudden that heart's racing, you're getting anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes stressful situations, cream rises to the top, or it just falls flat. And how does someone overcome that situation where that, I go from 3D target to the actual 3D target being right in front of me, that's a horrible bull elk, but yeah, you know what I'm saying, as far as that game day situation.
So there's the, everybody says, well, I'm going to fall back on my training, right? And that could not be further from the truth, because if all you've ever trained in is the physicality of shooting, you have to realize you're not even taking the same physical form with you to that high stress event. It's altered. Your body is altered physiologically. Increased heart rate, increased respiration, perspiration, blood pressure, all these things have changed. And then you're going to try to fall back on your training when it's not even the same body, right? That's why we train in the mentality of shooting, because we know that we cannot take the same body with us to that shot on a big bull elk, or that shot on the line, whatever it may be, a high stress event. Your body will be altered. So you cannot take the same body with you. So you must take the same mind with you. And that's where the blueprint comes in. Because no matter how high the stress is, you're going to start that shot with, I'm going to shoot this shot with control no matter what. That'll snap you into presence, right? And then you draw your bow back and you make another decision, because you've practiced making this decision so many thousands of times, it has become a fundamental truth, right? But still, in your high stress event, use it, right? Say it. I'm going to do this right. That'll get you present enough to anchor and aim and get all those things right. And then the big one, here I go. And then you move, right? So that's how you get to game day similarities, right? You're going to have an altered body. We cannot control how much adrenaline is dumped in our system. We can somewhat control our breathing, which will keep us in our forebrain so we can actually think and make these conscious decisions. So, that combat breathing is a big deal when you see yourself entering this stressful situation. But that just allows you to remain conscious, right? So you can make conscious decisions. And now you know what decisions you're going to make, when you're going to make them, and how you're going to carry them out. That's why this thing is so powerful. I mean, mankind has literally been looking for this information since we started shooting bows back in prehistoric days, right? Because only those people that could figure it out were the ones that stayed alive, right? Their tribe, their whatever stayed alive. And then that's gone through. And that's how this instruction has gone. But nobody's really looked at the science of it. They've just, they look at an archer that's a really good shot, and they look at how they physically do it. They look at their form. They look at their bow, what sights he's shooting or she's shooting, what release is she shooting, all these things. But they never ask that archer, what are you thinking about when you're at full draw? And many archers will be scared to tell you. But what you find in very successful bow hunters, rifle hunters, military snipers, law enforcement snipers, you will find every single one of them to a person says something to themselves in the shot process. I don't know one, and I've interviewed hundreds of them. I don't know one that has ever said, I do it completely blank-minded. It just doesn't happen. That's not the pattern of success. The pattern of success is making decisions within the shot process. So we really fine-tune that to what those decisions are, when you need to make them, and then how to carry them out.
So yeah, I guess like breathing and slowing yourself down, making those, you're bringing yourself to the moment by, okay, I'm going to take this shot with control, draw back, say a little half draw, and then to anchor. Yeah. So you're still, if you practice it enough, even though you'd be stressed out, if you bring yourself to those steps, that mantra, that whole process, that stressful situation, it's still going to be stressful, but you're in control because
you're overriding. You're overriding your subconscious. Your subconscious just wants you to get it done. It wants you to get you out of stress.
Oh yes,
and just get it done. Right? Subconscious doesn't care about accuracy. It only cares about efficiency. But you're constantly overriding it, like my son. I mean, Bodie just won the Rushmore Rumble.
I saw that. It's awesome. Congratulations to him.
And people are like, oh my God, he's so calm and everything. How does he do that? Well, he's just as nervous as the next person standing next to him in the shoot-off. But Bodie has the tools, because of ShotIQ, he has the tools to override his nervousness, right? I mean, it's not that he's not nervous, but he knows exactly what he needs to do. Where that archer next to him might be thinking about the aim and, oh my God, I've got to hit an X or I'm going to be out of the shoot-off or whatever. Bodie knows that all he has to do is keep his release moving. That's all he has to do, is keep his release moving, because if it stops, that means that your conscious mind is somewhere else. It's in the aim. It's in the nervousness. It's in, oh my God, everybody's watching me. It's, why isn't this thing gone off by now, right? That has nothing to do with his shot process. He knows that his aim will take care of itself. Even if he's shaking like crazy and that pin's going from red to red, just passing through the gold, it doesn't matter. Visual proprioception will always bring it back to the center if you allow it to, right? And then you have to make decisions and get that release moving and keep it moving. If he keeps his release moving, he's going to shoot it in the center. Everything else has been taken care of. His equipment, his vision, all that stuff is good to go. So it's about defining your job in these very high stress events as well.
Well, it also helps that he has goddamn sensei as a father. That's also a plus. It's funny. Do you watch Family Guy?
I have, yeah.
Numerous times throughout this conversation, there was a scene, I forget what episode it was, but Peter just goes, guilty. And I'm just sitting there so many times just wanted to say that. As you mentioned things that errors that we make, I'm just like, guilty right here. I'm just taking my both thumbs and pointing, because Yeah, I know I need to work on my shot. I'm very consciously aware of. And like the definition is insanity, doing the same thing over and over, expecting a
Right.
different result.
Yep.
And I'm not, a lot of times that's I'll get down, I'm like, oh damn it, and there's too many curse words come my mouth usually when I shoot, and it's I don't want it. I want it to be smooth. I want it to happen and not have something where I'm overthinking it, and trying to make sure I do all these things without. Yeah.
There's really no such thing as overthinking a shot. There is thinking incorrectly in a shot.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
But overthinking doesn't really happen. Now, if you were talking about if your shot or if shooting was completely open loop, right? Like if it was like shooting a basketball, because this is the definition of how professional athletes choke basically at the moment of truth. Is like, let's say that basketball player has shot a basketball at the free throw line literally probably a million times, right? And they have a routine that they go through. They bounce the ball 3 times, they shake their ass a little bit, and then they shoot. Well, when they actually go into the movement of shooting, that is open loop, meaning it's supposed to be a movement that's an automatic motor program. And they, through repetition, have made this thing very automatic. It's smooth. It's all those good things, right? But then the game winner comes in, right? And they bounce the ball 3 times, they shake their ass, and they go, okay, if I make this, I'm going to win the game. So therefore, I got to make sure that I break my wrist at this certain point or whatever. And they put conscious thought into the open loop movement, and it kills the totality of the movement. That's why they miss. That's the definition of choking, right? At the moment of truth. But none of that stuff exists in shooting. You have to be closed loop, because otherwise efficiency and autopilot's going to take over. And autopilot will always link pre-ignition movements to the release motor program. So
sweet.
Yeah, there you go. Too easy. Awesome.
Yeah, sure. I'll be killing it right when I'm going to go out and shoot right now, and boom, boom. And now I'll send you pictures of. I'll do a group and I'll look at. I got this down now.
But literally, it's literally that fact. When you change your thought process in shooting, like people ask me all the time, how long does your program take? It takes as long as it takes you to make a decision. Literally, that's how long it takes. So your next arrow could be your turning point if you treat it as such. Right? If you make that original decision and believe it, and then you make the half draw moment and believe it, and then you aim and you get that pin on there, like, wow, it's actually on there. Okay, I don't care about that anymore. I'm just going to watch it. And then thumb goes on that trigger. Then here I go. Then whatever words you're going to use, right? Like if it's squeeze or keep squeezing, or keep pressing, or it's pull, or whatever your words are going to be, your movement is linked to those words. So your movement is going to be the same speed. So if you need to fix a speed in your movement, you first have to fix your speech pattern. Okay?
All right, like that guy with the trigger. You still, they just, you watch his finger. Okay, yeah.
Because the next shot, I went, wow, that was a light bulb moment for me. I had complete control of this kid's finger. So the next shot, I went, okay, you ready? Yep. I said, okay, take the slack out. He took the slack out. Okay. Start pressing. And I saw that finger start to move. Okay. Keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing, right? And I said it faster, and his finger moved faster. But there's a certain speed limit at which you jump loops. Right? There's a certain speed at which you can't gain feedback in that movement anymore. And in like the online course or live clinics, I have people do a test that shows them their exact speed of movement or the exact speed limit of their closed loop control system. So pretty cool stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. This was a very educational episode. Thank you, Joel. I really, you made me aware of a lot of things I need to work on, but you take each shot one shot at a time. Really what it comes down to. Yeah.
Right. Really. And blueprint it, and it'll be amazing for you. I mean, you can literally change your life in one shot.
I believe it. I mean, there's people that swear by it. Sarah's like just ranting and raving, not ranting. She's raving about you. So yeah. And you see it all the time, people online, and look at your son. I mean, geez. How
Yeah.
old's your son?
He's just turned 14.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
cool. You know, and he shares your passion for archery, which makes
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole thing's a lot easier. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
he's out shooting his bow right now.
Is he really? Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, Joe. I'm very honored to have you on here because a lot of people look up to you, and
I
you
appreciate
provide, you're helping people.
Yep.
You know, because we have a love for archery, all of us, and you want to make that shot count, especially when it is game day. You know,
Yeah.
we don't want to f things up, and
right.
yeah.
I mean, it just people just don't have to struggle anymore. I mean, the code has been cracked, literally cracked. It's not. I'm not doing any mechanical fixes to the mental problems. We have defined the mental problem. We have figured it out. So, the struggle doesn't have to happen anymore. And everybody's in the same boat, right? I mean, I deal with target panic just like anybody else does, just because we're born with it. It's natural stuff. It's not natural for us to make explosions and ignore them, right? So it's the conscious override. That's what we have to learn how to do that. And that code has been cracked. So
I'm speaking to the key master himself, Joel Turner. So, hey, tell everyone where they can find your course, where they can find you, all your social media, all that stuff, and let's get some people help because I know that you change a lot of people's shooting. So,
Instagram is Joel Turner _ Shot IQ. Facebook, I've got Shot IQ. There's Joel Turner. And then ShotIQ.com is where you would get the course. And it's an online course on control process shooting. There's also a precision pistol course on there that covers control process shooting in handguns. And it's, online course. You can take it on any device you want at your leisure. And once you purchase the course, you have it for a lifetime. And we're constantly adding to the course. I've got new modules that are dropping here in the next couple days. And, as I learn more, the cool part about it, as opposed to the book where I can't just keep rewriting the book, the book has the basic concepts in it, but the online course has got, actual demonstrations of this and the tests and all these things. And you get to see it happen. And again, it's a lifetime login for it, and you can use it on any of your devices, anywhere you can get cell service. So it's really cool stuff. Pretty proud of that.
Awesome. Joel Turner, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Roger that. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.
Bye, Joel.
Yeah.